Welcome back to Luke's Properties YouTube channel. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to buy a house for just £10,000. I'm going to show you how to turn £10,000 into £20,000 and then use that £20,000 to go and buy your first buy-to-let property. I haven't just made this up. This isn't fantasy. This isn't all theory. I've actually done this myself. So I'm speaking from experience. I've done this over and over again, countless times, and I've used this exact strategy that I'm about to show you to buy my own properties. This works, it's worked for me, and there's no reason why it can't work for you too. So focus on this video, take some notes, and use this video as a blueprint. If you've only got around £10,000 saved, then this is exactly how you can turn that into £20,000 and get yourself your first buy-to-let in just 12 months. So let's get into it. So you've got £10,000 saved. First of all, well done to you. The strategy we're going to use here is called rent to rent. So what you're going to do is you're going to go and find an old, tired 5-bedroom HMO. There's thousands of these properties all over the UK. Old, tired HMO buildings, houses of multiple occupation, houses that have already been divided into separate rooms, bedsits or flats. They already have an HMO license, but over the years, they've become tired, as has the landlord, and the landlords of these particular properties don't want to manage them anymore. And oftentimes, they're not satisfied with their local letting agent services. So they're looking for a solution, and you can be that solution by offering these landlords a long-term fixed guaranteed rent, which will give them true passive income and give them a hassle-free solution to landlording. They don't have to deal with the tenants, they don't have to deal with the bills, they don't even have to deal with minor maintenance. You can cover all of that. This is why rent to rent's so powerful, because you can be the solution to their pain and you can get paid because you've added value to them. Remember, money follows value. So if you can add value to people, you can provide a valuable service, then of course, you're going to get paid for that service. And how do you add value? Well, you solve a problem. These landlords have a problem. They have old, tired properties. They don't want to keep paying letting agent fees. They don't want to manage the property themselves and deal with tenants. Then here you come with a solution that can solve all of those problems and guarantee them true passive income. It's a no-brainer and a very compelling and convincing offer. You just have to learn how to communicate that offer to the right people. So you find 2 old, tired 5-bedroom HMOs and you offer the landlord of these HMOs a guaranteed rent of £1,500. You're then going to pay them a deposit. Now, depending on how good at negotiation you are, your deposit is either going to be 2 weeks or 1 month. I've just recently done a rent to rent deal where my deposit was 2 weeks rather than 4 weeks. So I paid 1 month's rent to the landlord and then I paid a 2-week deposit. So you're either going to pay 2 weeks or 4 weeks. But let's just say, worst case scenario, you pay a 4-week deposit. So that means you spent 1 month's rent of £1,500. You've then also invested 1 month deposit with the landlord of £1,500. So that takes you to £3,000. Then you're going to spend around £2,000 on furniture, which brings your total to £5,000 invested. You want to make the property look as appealing as possible, as homely as possible on a budget. Because remember, you don't own the asset, so you don't want to spend too much. And because you're investing in 2 of these HMOs, that's going to bring your grand total to £10,000. You're then going to market these properties aggressively on all short-term stay platforms, on all rooms for rent platforms. You're then going to rent each room out for £600 a month with all the bills included to either a group of working professionals or individual working professionals. That £600 is still a lot less than if these individual tenants were to go and rent, say, a 1-bedroom flat, for example. That's going to cost them around £750, £800 a month, maybe even more in some areas. And then they have to pay their bills on top, which will be at least another £200. So they're going to end up paying around £900 to £1,000 for a 1-bedroom flat. Or they can come and spend £600 and get a nice, furnished, all bills included room and save themselves £300 to £400, which will allow them to save some of their income, which is what everyone wants to be able to do. People often get this wrong. They think that rent to rent is immoral and you're actually driving rent prices up, when in actual fact, you're actually creating an affordable, convenient product for tenants by furnishing it, by improving the perceived value, and by letting it for £300 to £400 less than a 1-bedroom flat. You're adding value to the marketplace and you're creating a very necessary and high in demand product. So you're going to rent each room out for around £600 a month. That's going to give you a gross rental income for all 10 rooms of £6,000. You then have to pay your landlord rent, which is £1,500 per house. So that works out to be £3,000. Then you need to put aside around £600 for running costs per house. So gas, electric, water, Wi-Fi, these are running costs. And these are costs that you have to pay to keep your business going. And to create such a good product, you have to pay the running costs. So after your running costs from both houses, which together equals £1,200, that's going to give you a profit of £900 per month per house. So for 2 houses, that's going to work out to be £1,800. So at this point, you've invested £10,000 and you're making back £1,800 a month. Now let's have a look at what happens 3 months later. So 3 months later, you've now made £5,200. And at this point, you can then use this money to go and find another 5-bedroom HMO. And again, you repeat the process. You rent it for £1,500 a month, you pay the landlord their deposit, you pay the furniture, and that comes to a total of £5,000. You repeat the process again. You rent this house out for £3,000, £600 a room. You pay the landlord their rent of £1,500, the running costs are £600, and that gives you a net profit of £900 per month. So at this stage, you've got 3 rent-to-rent HMOs, all making £900 a month, which gives you a total profit of £2,700 per month, all from investing £10,000 3 months ago. So let's say it takes you around 3 to 4 months to get to this position. Well, there's still 8 months left of the year. And at this stage, you're making £2,700 a month in clean profit from investing £10,000 3 to 4 months ago. So for the remaining 8 months out of the year, you're going to make £2,700. So £2,700 times 8 equals £21,600. And guess what? That's enough to buy your first buy-to-let. I know this because I'm actually helping someone do this right now. They're buying a £75,000 buy-to-let and it's going to cost them around £20,000 to buy it. It's their first property, so they don't have to pay stamp duty. They don't need to make many improvements, maybe some paint and decoration here and there. But overall, they're going to spend around £20,000 on a buy-to-let. And you could do the same with money that you've made from 3 rent-to-rent properties. So in just 12 months, you've got £21,600. You can use that money to go and find an £80,000 buy-to-let, either up north or over in Wales. This is going to cost you a £20,000 deposit, which is 25% of the purchase price. You're going to have to pay around £1,500 to a solicitor, around £650 to a mortgage broker if you're a new client, which brings your total to £22,150. You then rent this house out for £650 a month. Your mortgage will be £225 a month, insurance £30 a month, maintenance £44 a month, which will give you a net rent of £351 per month or £4,212 per year. So you've turned £10,000 into a rent-to-rent portfolio that makes you £2,700 per month, which is enough for you to quit your 9 to 5 and go full-time into running a property business. You've done this in around 3 to 4 months. You're then going to save the profit from this business for the rest of the year, and by the end of the year, you're going to have £21,600 to invest in your first buy-to-let. You're going to rent this buy-to-let out, and it's going to make you £4,212 per year in net profit. So you're making around £351 per month from that buy-to-let, which we can add to your £2,700 that you're making from your rent-to-rents, which means you're making over £3,000 from your property portfolio of 3 rent-to-rents and 1 buy-to-let. You're also benefiting from capital appreciation as your first asset increases in value over time. You've replaced your income, so you don't need to work a 9 to 5 anymore. And the nature of this rent-to-rent business only demands you to work around 1 to 2 hours a day max. So you've got all of your time back, you've quit the 9 to 5, you're out of the rat race. You've also invested in your first asset, your first buy-to-let, which is paying you a passive income, which you can add to your cash flow. You're making over £3,000 a month from this small portfolio of properties. You're getting the appreciation of owning an asset, and you've turned £10,000 into £20,000 and bought your first buy-to-let, all from the decisions that you made 12 months prior. This is how you buy a house for £10,000. You start a rent-to-rent business, you turn that £10,000 into £2,700 per month of cash flow. You then save that cash flow for the rest of the year for 8 months. That will add up to £21,600. You then use that to buy your first buy-to-let property, rent it out, and keep repeating the process. Every time you make a spare £5,000 from your rent-to-rent portfolio and your buy-to-let, which should only take you around a couple months, you then use that money to take on another rent-to-rent property. And every time you do this, your cash flow increases, and the time it will take you to save up another deposit decreases because you're making more every month. And as long as you're smart with your money and you don't spend it on things you don't need, you remain disciplined and you budget, then it's not going to be long before you have a portfolio of buy-to-lets and rent-to-rents, and you're making 5 figures a month, all from investing that initial £10,000 in your first 2 rent to rent properties. So you don't need loads of money to get started in property. If you've only got £10,000, then just do this. And if you need someone to help you do this, then I'll put a link in the description below. Click the link and you'll be able to book a free call in with myself. On that call, we'll have a conversation, we'll make a plan for you going forward, and we'll work out if we're a good fit for each other. I'll happily mentor you and show you exactly how to do this step by step. If not, and you think you can do it by yourself, then just copy this plan. Do exactly this. This is exactly what I've done over and over again, and it's worked for me. I've built my own buy-to-let portfolio from doing exactly this consistently over the last 7 years. So there's no reason why you can't do this too. I hope you've enjoyed this video, guys. And as always, I'll see you on the next one.